Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh, Interskilled, Integrating Presence, and today I have Jennifer Pilates with me. Jennifer, how's it going today?
It is going fantastic. I'm so excited that we're finally getting together, Josh.
I think Jennifer reached out almost a year ago, and due to this one thing and another, but here we are. And so, who is Jennifer Pilates, and what kind of work does she do?
My goodness, Jennifer Pilates is what I like to call a multi-passionate entrepreneur. She can't help but get her hands in everything. So I definitely am a holistic wellness expert. I've been a Pilates rehabilitative specialist for over 2 decades, a spiritual thought leader, a Reiki master healer, an intuitive medium, a speaker, a podcaster, just like yourself. But most importantly, I am a human, energetic being who is here to spread love and light and inspiration and to help people empower themselves from within.
Well, that's lovely. The first thing I want to know and get it out of the way, I think, too, is your last name, Pilates. So I'm not familiar so much with the
Mhm.
exercise. I know that when I peek in windows and it looks like a very intense, maybe once predominated by feminine, but maybe not so much anymore. They seem really involved. And for dumb guys like me who don't really know what to say about it, what is Pilates? Sorry, I hope probably people that are listening to this are probably going to laugh at me, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But we got to
No,
learn one way or another, right?
I
Instead of
still
me
get.
looking it up. And then your last name, do you have any relation to any of that? Or I'm
Mm,
interested in the last name
I know.
coincidence here.
It's such an interesting, that's like a podcast in itself about the last name and how it came to be. So it is my legal last name now. I will say this, a very smart, I believe he was 12 years old. This little boy walked up to me and he was like, Miss. And I said, hi, we were talking and he said, can I ask you something? And I said, of course. And he said, is that really your last name or is that branding? And
Sharp
I will
kid, sharp kid.
I looked at him and I thought, you are so brilliant, young man. So it really came about after being called Jennifer Pilates forever. It's all I was known for. And as time went on, I had another last name and it wasn't working. And so I thought, and I'm a very savvy business marketing person, and I thought, well, I can't trademark this, but you know what? I can change this. And so that's what I did. And it made my life so much easier personally and professionally, legal wise, the whole 9 yards. And so it meant nothing to anyone else but to me because at that point I had already been known as it. My clients had brought in marketing signs for my business. I've over the years, I've had 7+ studios, always had these beautiful names. And I would say to someone, well, where do you tell them that you go to take Pilates? And they're like, with Jennifer. And I'm like, fantastic. Marketing means nothing. So it became this evolution way before, like, I would be really frustrated when people would call me Pilates girl or, Pilates. And it took me a long time to realize, oh, I get it. And so it evolved into something, and it wasn't done haphazardly on a professional or personal level. I sought out Joseph Pilates, who is deceased, by the way. So he has always been a presence in my life. And there, I did ask for permission. I asked all about it, and there was a huge conversation about it. So I mean, it's a really in-depth story behind it. But the short story is, yes, it is legal.
Yeah, because I thought it was somebody's last name. So I was curious if
Mm-hmm.
your actual lineage or,
Mm-hmm.
what's
Mm-hmm.
going on there. So that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. Thanks for clearing that up. And now I'm rising to the level of that 12-year-old.
Yeah, right. So there you go. So you have it. And it's not, it's a question I get a lot. And I think it's a really special question for me. And there's so much more to it, but that's kind of the short
Yeah,
answer
well,
for
that's
it.
lovely. But
Yeah.
tell complete newbies, how would you describe Pilates? And then work it into your personal story. Maybe you
Mhm.
get tired of telling your personal story, maybe you don't. But yeah, I think it's relevant here at the beginning to say something about it, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Pilates in and of itself is all about strengthening and lengthening from your core outward. So if you were to come to me as a human being and you go, oh, Jennifer, my hip, my right hip is hurting. And I'd say, okay. And I'd probably ask you, because my background is rehabilitative therapy with Pilates, because that is how it found me through a traumatic car accident in 1997. So I rehab with Pilates for over a year before I ever thought to get into it, because I was a rising corporate girl in senior living. So that's a little bit of a backstory with that part. But when you look at Pilates, we work from your core outward because of the concept that just because your right hip, you may be having pain there, that's not necessarily where the root cause is coming from. So when we start from the core and we work outward, we're able to realign the body from head to toe and the spirit and your emotions along the way, because we do work with breath work. It is movement. We are, in essence, especially when clients work with me, particularly, we're working on cleansing and clearing your chakras and aligning everything. And so it truly is about strengthening and lengthening your body from head to toe. So it is a full workout in an hour. And yes, you're correct. It very much started with professional dancers. When Joseph Pilates came to the United States, he got off a boat literally in New York City, went into a building, opened up his practice with his wife, and it happened to be in a building where they were all dancers. So for decades and decades, it very much was more of a feminine aspect to things. There definitely were men back there, but they didn't talk about it as much. Now, fast forward, so many decades later, it very much is something that professional athletes have been using, whether they talk about it or not. And I've worked with so many professional athletes across the board, from football to baseball to hockey to golf to tennis, professional skiers, like you name it. There isn't anyone who doesn't understand the value that comes from aligning your body and the strength that you have from that. So it's great, as I say, for everyone from 8 years old to 88 years old. It doesn't matter. There's equipment, there's not equipment. It all depends on where you're at and what's best for your body in that moment.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you for that. And just to further educational line here, when you say core, I kind of know what that means, but are you talking about like on the physical level, like stomach muscles? Is that basically what we mean by core? I mean, it's a fancy word for that, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining it means more than just your stomach muscles, like maybe
Certainly.
the kind of an emotional core, a spiritual core, other types of cores too. Yeah. What do you mean by that? And then just, I think to wrap maybe, or to move, tie a bow on this, or getting to it anyway, if possible, is like, how did he discover this anyway? I mean, he just jumped right in and had it going. So there must be some kind of backstory to him too. Cause this is a huge thing, right? I mean, there's like, I'm sure it's not as widespread as yoga, but I mean, there's like Pilates studios everywhere, right? Or I mean,
There are,
more or less, yeah.
and there are. And they're all incredibly different. The industry, much like yoga, and I have a passion for yoga as well. Yoga has faced its fair amount of intricacies over the years with people watering it down and shifting it and so on and so forth. And Pilates is definitely going through that again. Pilates is in the top 5 of modalities as we move into this decade again. It was so big 2 decades ago, then it started to peter out, and then everyone started to shift it, and they would call it, they have a lot of names for it with a lot of different franchises. And it doesn't mean you're doing Pilates though. And I think that, there are a lot of yogis out there who understand exactly what I'm saying. It's a little frustrating when you come from a classical background. So for me personally, we have Joseph Pilates, who is the inventor, the founder. Then he actually certified 2 to 3 people. My teachers learned from them. So I'm a true third generation Pilates trainer, which is very hard to come by these days because we're dwindling out because of the way in which, the world goes and people age and so on and so forth. When we talk about Pilates, it originally was called Contrology. Later on, Joseph, and his real last name is Pilates, it became the Pilates method. And that was via him. So when it was Contrology and how that part began is he was a very sick little boy, rickets, rheumatic fever, asthma, just a mess. And so he really spent his childhood learning to get well. What could he do? So he studied yoga. He studied ancient Grecian regimens. He studied boxing. There are some different stories out there, but those are the real things that we truly know that he really worked at and began working with his body to the point that he was the original model for anatomy charts. Pretty impressive. Like we're talking 18, we're talking a long time ago. Now, when you fast forward and you say, well, how did some of this really come to be? When we look at when he was interned in World War II, within his camp, that's when influenza broke out. He began helping the people within his camp. Now, if you think about a show called MASH, definitely aging myself here, they had a certain bed, right, in the medics. So they had this bed, it had springs. That's what he had to work with. And that is how he started to make the first pieces of equipment and design them with the springs. Thus, we have our spring work. So during this time, and influenza broke out, the short story is that no one in his camp got sick. He was giving them all of his Contrology method, later to become Pilates. So at that point, the Hamburg military police found out about him, wanted to speak to him, wanted him to do work with them. And again, the short story is he really wanted no part of that and hopped a boat from Germany to the United States. On the boat, met his wife, well, a woman who became his wife, who was a nurse, and so on and so forth. And so then he was off the boat in New York City and brought it to the United States. And then began, his brother worked with him to help him design the equipment, because there is mat work, then there is equipment work. And his original equipment was all based so that you could have a table in your house that turned into what we call a Pilates chair. You could have a sofa that turned into your bed. He really, and even in all his books, he quoted himself as being at least 50 years ahead of his time, and had in some ways predicted the downfall of our physical world, and how that would affect our physical bodies. And has truly believed, with his work down to, he teaches you how to shower and how to breathe and all of the things. And that's why it weaves so much of yoga and the true Pilates method. It's very flowy. And that's why I always say a lot of the classes that I do, I call them Pilates fusion, because it definitely has that fusion to it. And I think that it's important to have the classical movements while still fusing where he originated them from. Because I really feel that that's who he was. He was an inventor. He always wanted to work with the body and better the body. And while, yes, I do feel he solely would be doing his original work now, he would have adapted that as our lives have adapted over the years.
Really well put. I appreciate that. And it's maybe a little bit ironic that the decline of the physicality. At the same time, we see more and more people they're bereft of spirituality. It's just all physical things. And, get as much as I can while I can, because that's it. After I'm dead and gone, which is really ridiculous. We see things being born and dying all around us and continuing on and cycling. And we have the hubris to think, oh, I'm immune to that. Like, that process isn't going to happen to me. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting way to put it. So what about the core though? Like, how did he discover why that was so important? Or why is it so important too?
Right. So the core is so important. So our main core, and when I say that our method stems from your core, that is your true abdominal area. That is your true core. So when you think about 9 times out of 10, if you were in a gym, the exercises that you're doing, they are working on what you see. With Pilates, we work on the innermost muscles. And when you work on the innermost muscles, you're automatically working those larger muscles that are on the outside that you do see. So I would say it's a two for the price of one. More importantly, it gets to that root cause, it gets to the core of the core. And when you start there, because 9 out of 10 people have back issues, right there, we can alleviate that pain. We can alleviate that tension that's going on and help improve the posture without me even saying, I'm going to work on your gait today. It sort of comes back to that idea of, some people just want to say that they're doing Pilates, and I'm okay with that, because you're going to come in and you're going to do your Pilates and I'm going to do my magic. And that's where, that beautiful blend happens. And then you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better and I feel taller, and oh my goodness, my clothes are different. And we do have that true guarantee after 10 sessions, like, you are feeling better, more confident in your body. Your mental state has began to shift. After 20 sessions, you truly notice your body changing, inches, the whole 9 yards. Your clothes are fitting differently. You're walking better. Life is better. You're not in so much pain. And after 30 sessions, you have your Pilates body. You have your new body. Whatever that is, where however you came in, whether that was for rehab, for weight loss, whether that was just to be a better human being, that's what you have. And so I always say, ideally, someone wants to be practicing twice a week. 3 times a week is phenomenal if you can do that. And with Joe, he believed you could do it every day. And he did do it every day. And, it's definitely something that when I'm good, I'm good. And when I'm not, I at least, am getting in my 3 days a week. But it is something that you can do every day. You can't overdo it because you're always working with your body's weight, your body's strength. And that also makes it very special and very different when you look at the true essence of the classical method. When we jump into some of the other franchises and clubs that are out there, they're very different because they're coming from more of a gym aspect of working muscle and strength. And yes, Pilates is about that. But first and foremost, it's about aligning body, mind, and spirit. And through that, we strengthen and lengthen and tone the body. We don't start, the true classical method does not start with the other thing. It's not to say that someone may not enjoy the other ones. And if that's your first opportunity to entertain Pilates, by all means, go for it. It's going to give you this essence of wanting to know more. And that's what I love about all these other different modalities that have jumped up and add the word Pilates to their places. And, I always look at there is no competition. There is great marketing. And I appreciate everyone's marketing the word because it keeps it in the front line, just like it would for a yogi.
Well, that's cool that you have such an open mind about it. I know some people can be really upset about copyright infringements and yada, yada, yada. And it reminds me kind of this old saying, fake it till you make it, even though I kind of have problems with that. And it's not the greatest way to put it, but like you're saying, like a gateway, what gets you into, what gets you interested, and then you can find out more of the real thing and what is kind of the better fit for wherever you're at, whatever you want kind of thing. Yeah. So
I was going to say,
please,
love
sorry.
that I love that you use the word gateway because that's something that I always say about my clients. Pilates is the gateway drug to my world. You think you're coming to me for Pilates, and the next thing you know, the Reiki healing is going on. You're having your intuitive reading. We're doing a business energetic imprint for your business to help shift things. And it truly, for me, it came at a time where I felt like the universe said, if we don't stop her now, like this isn't going to bode well for her life, because I truly was programmed. I was truly in the system of go to college, get your job, all my friends were having fun in their 20s and I'm climbing the corporate ladder with a 401k and blah, 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 blah. And that car accident literally changed everything about my world. And so no matter what I get my hands into as a serial entrepreneur, Pilates is always my heart and soul. Everything I do comes through it. The Reiki energy, it's coming through now. It's just there. Like it doesn't not exist with everything that I do. And that's why I look at it and say the true essence of it, even for Joseph Pilates, he was a true healer. And when you're working, and yogis are true healers. And so it's just so special to be able to bring that to light for so many people around the world, regardless again of why they think they're doing it.
It's a good transition point. I want to ask you a little bit more about the accident. And I mean, my thing was kind of similar. I haven't really been open and forthright with my story because I don't feel it's applicable to so many at this time. But there's these things where it is a classic story in some sense, where at least I felt like I was so kind of off course for where I needed to be, that there had to be something that just stopped me in my tracks. I had to get off one train before I got on another. And I don't look down on anybody that has chosen, what society has ready for them, the house, the wife or husband, the car, the kids, the vacation, the retirement plan, the eat, sleep, repeat. And it works for some people, and I'm happy that it does, but it doesn't work for everybody. Found out that I'm glad that I went through what I went through in order to know that there's more to life than just that for some people. So I'm interested to know your take on this too, because It would be nice for one day to get to a point where we don't really need these extremes, to have expanding consciousness. But after they happen, we look back on them and we could say, oh, well, actually, this was a great gift, right? That I've been given here. And at the same time, not use it as an allowance for people who do have really like dark, I would just say maybe even evil intents to say, oh, hey, I'm just playing this role here. And the more I can make you suffer and have a hardship on your life, then it's for your own good, which is ridiculous. It's kind of psychopathic, sadistic, and gives them kind of this false allowance to behave in the way they do, because then they could twist it back and say, oh, I was just treating you that way because it's for your own good, which is BS. However, that it's weird because there is something to this. In retrospect, it seems to me that we can use it as a gateway, again, the word, for awakening and for well-being and wellness too. So, I mean, you can relate a little bit of that, whatever you'd like. And then how do you view, or how do you kind of respond and see what I just said to this notion that maybe someday we won't need such extremes like this to become awake? And I see it in some people in some generations, and I would just maybe attribute it to past lives that they've had strong, what's it called in Buddhism, parami. The perfections or things they've been working on in past lives have now come to fruition in a different way. It's such a complex weave of causes and conditions. It's really hard for a lot of us to know all the intricate details. In fact, it can be quite maddening to try to contemplate all the ins and outs of that vast mystery. But yeah.
Truly. I mean, truly. And great questions, because I think right now it's very pertinent, in our world. And I would say worlds. I truly believe that our worlds have split. And I truly believe that there are people that are in one world where they do see color, four color, D color, 12D, whatever you want to call it. And I do believe there is another world that is very black and white. And to me, black and white is accounting, doctors, lawyers, it's all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with any of those people. The way the worlds differ are how our hearts are expanding. You and I had a little tidbit about this. Like, I really don't resonate anymore with social media. I never really have. I've always been guiding my clients. I've been guiding for the last 7 years. Get your businesses off of them. Here's what you need to do. And here's why. I couldn't always explain it, but that's what was the channel message coming through. And now it makes sense. So I do believe that for some people, there doesn't need to be a car accident, a major health crisis, or so on and so forth. I will say, though, that for 99.9% of every intuitive empath, old soul that I know, it is that way. And it's not just a one-time thing. Who, by the way, everyone, if you just like, woo, got that one out of the way. No, by the way, there's more. And because you have to think about this is Earth, and it's called the School of Earth. So it's Earth School. So you're always learning, you're ever growing. That's why you're here. That's why you chose to be here. And so within that, there are moments and there are lessons. And in every lesson, I do believe there's a blessing in everything when we can take a moment and really say, instead of, why is this happening to me? How is this happening for me? And again, those are not easy things. Those do take moments and sometimes a little bit longer to be able to do that, but you can do that. And there is more light in the world with people who are doing that now. There are more people who are looking and saying, I want community. I want to talk to you. I don't want a smartphone. I mean, when you look at, I'll give you like my, if you want to call it predictions or whatever, I've said it the last few years. As we get into 2026, it is going to be, it's reversing. It is back to human and human. It is back to analog. It is a lot of people tossing out their smartphone for a dumb phone. It is people getting out into nature more and understanding, that, call it an awakening, to some extent. Yes, it's been bubbling since 2020. It's just now hitting a peak where so many people are looking at it, and you don't have to look at it as an awakening. You can just look at it as, I am so done with what's no longer working for me, and I'm shifting, and that's okay. You don't have to put certain words to it. You don't have to make it wooey. You don't have to, my world is a little wooey, but you know what? I don't like that word. And I still very much like A plus B to equal C. You'll hear me say that all the time. Do I have a life-size unicorn in my home? I do. And I love her. But at the same time, I still firmly like to have my feet planted on the ground. So I am that person who is going to come to you, who's going to be very direct and say, look, yes, we have these two worlds, and you can dabble in them both. Just know that there are going to be some people who are only going to stay in their world. And at that point, that comes to that position of needing to meet every person where they are and having grace for every person, because everyone is going through something. Everyone collectively is going through what we're all seeing play out, a movie that we're not getting paid to be in. We try to get out of it, and the next thing you know, you're pulled back in, you forgot your popcorn. It just is what it is. And we just have to be able to smile, go with the flow, and go, okay, good to know. I always say my guides always, they bring me information that I need to know. And then it's up to me what I choose to do with that, and how I'm guided to work with that. Other than that, yes, I want to stay in my happy world and let me buff a crystal and, do a Reiki distant healing session and just be by the ocean and in nature. I want to say hi to every person. And so I probably got off on a tangent in there somewhere,
No.
but that's really where I do believe that, yes, I have been tossed into some significant spiritual awakenings that I always say, clearly I was drunk as a skunk when I signed that contract. There is no way. And then a very, very bright person once said to me, at some point you sat there and you looked at the scroll. That's what I want to believe. I want to believe it was a scroll. And I went, holy sweet Jesus, holy sweet. There must have been something so flipping amazing towards the end of that scroll that I was like, sign a sister up. I'm in. I don't care about the toxic family. I don't care about the narcissist abuse. I don't care about the car accident. I don't care about the heart surgery. I don't care about being thrusted into all of these phoenixes where I have nothing and I'm coming up from the ashes again, because that looks amazing.
Well, there is that. And I'm very familiar with this notion in certain spiritual circles, and I can see it and I'm open to it because I can't prove it otherwise until I can see and know it for myself. Then I can't write it off for sure. So I definitely consider that as a possibility. Yeah, at the same time, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that our human experience, we want to have meaning and understanding, and it seems like in retrospect, this is one way we can do it to have things make sense. So they're not just like we feel a victim of circumstance
Correct.
or like, why is this happening to me, and have this, helplessness and stuff like that. But it's so complex. And I mean, I'm sure, some wise people that can see and know, I tend to lean more towards the karma side of it, karma, that skillful actions
Hmm.
usually will have skillful results. But even that is so complex. And there's so many conditions that are involved that if the conditions aren't there, certain things won't fruit. And then it depends who we're associated with and things like this. So it's a very complex thing, no matter the thing with the contracts, I'm wondering, and it can be explained away, or not explained away, but explained in a way conceptually. It's like, why do we choose to forget? And there's some people who don't. There's some people that come in having it. They're rare, but I've at least heard some people, I know whether it's legitimate or not, that seem to have almost lots of past life recall, that they can know more lucid detail what they've done in previous lives and how one thing there is now conditioning and leading to causes here and this and that. So, and people talk about this in regression too, but that's a whole nother thing where I have a lot of questions with Michael Newton's books too. But anyway, that's maybe for another time. But what was I getting at with this? It's like yeah, now I completely lost the thread here, but I'm sure you have something to say on this anyway right now.
Well, I think that, and I agree with you, because it's not to say, and I want people to know, it's not to say that, during,
Why do we choose to forget? That's what it was.
right.
Why do so many people forget?
But I
And some
don't know
people
that it's a
don't.
choice. I
Yeah,
don't know that it's
exactly.
always, I don't believe
I
that
wonder
it's
if it's
necessarily a choice, because everything that I've studied and everything that I've learned, and this is a really empowering moment, and somebody's going to go, oh, but I want you to hear it. Earth is like the hardest place to come to. And we all chose to come here. Not only did we choose to come here, we chose to come here during the times that we have experienced. And I just want to just, since 2020, y'all, we agreed to come and experience all of this. We're all nuts, but we're also all badasses. And we also are all empowered. And we also all said, I got this and I can do that. Now, it has not always felt that way in my life. There are moments where I have sat here and cried and kicked and screamed, and I have had my moments of, why me? Why now? Why this? Whatever. And I give myself those moments. And that's what I want people to know. It's moments. I don't allow myself to sit there for a day. I mean, I'm talking moments. And I got this from a Navy SEAL. They allow themselves 90 moments to be as happy and glorified and whatever. And they allow themselves 90 seconds of despair, anger, whatever it is. Now, it is a human experience. I sometimes go over the 90 seconds. But I do rein it in. Or I want to say, however, I do rein it in and I go, okay, did I get that out of my system? Because I don't want personally to hold crap in my body, because then what happens? It turns into dis-ease, which ultimately turns into disease. And I don't want you to. And I want you to know that there is nothing that you need to hold on to sit in. That's not why you're here. It's supposed to go through you. Observe, grab the lesson. Thank you. Check that off my list. On to the next one. That blessing. I met that really nice person. Oh my gosh, I reconnected with that family member. I wouldn't have other. Oh my, there is something. There's always something. And it's up to us to take those moments. And I feel that now, as a collective society in one world, we absolutely are doing that. And I think that the other world is, they have their moments. There are people that absolutely are not, and they're not going to, and that's okay. That's their journey. And it's hard for some of us to really understand that, but we have to go step back and go, it's not all about me, right? All of us here are lighthouses. Lighthouses don't get up and chase a boat. A lighthouse stands here and shines, and you attract people in, and you have to remember that some of those people are going to continue on, and that's okay. And then there's going to be some people that you need to show that river keeps going. They need to keep going. But you are the lighthouse, and you stand there, and you're amazing. And that's
Yeah.
what I feel a lot of people, it's not that they've forgotten. There's so much crap coming at us every moment of every day. I mean, I don't know about you, Josh, but I don't watch news. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm guided to find out what I need to know for whatever
Same.
reason that may be, whether that's weather or geographic,
Sure.
because I am that person who is the weather earth kind of girl. But other than that, like, I know it's going to sound terrible, but I kind of laugh at some things going on right now, because it's so fake to me. To me, it's beyond obvious and fake that I'm like,
they're not even trying to hide it anymore a lot of
no,
times.
no.
Yeah.
And y'all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But like, was there a time where, I was firmly situated and I had a pantry that my mom could come grocery shopping in? Abso-freaking-lutely. But not out of fear. It was out of, I want to take care of my house and home, and also let that be my temple, my body. If God guided me to do that again, I would do it again. I love watching these people can stuff and do stuff, but I'm not. I have been on a journey of journeys these last 3 years that only now is some of it even beginning to make sense to me. And I'm understanding, this wasn't all about me. I actually, when I look back now, can see why I was from place to place and not having home and showing up in other people's lives where I thought they were showing up in mine. It was actually the quite reverse. And, wow, I really need to sit down and write a book about all that. It really just, the other day I was like, holy mackerel. And do I see it coming to an end where I'm, being guided to, home, in essence of, I don't have to, keep flying all around.
Well, yeah, and I'm very much in that stage now because my girlfriend is Danish and I have to leave every 3 months. So then I'm in the UK and then I'm back here in America and then I was in South Korea and yada yada yada. But I want to go back to really emphasizing that point about allowing yourself time to express because we don't want to repress or suppress, but we also don't want to keep perpetuating it, then it will create a reinforcing habit pattern where you get some kind of satisfaction for doing that. Or, or like you're saying, it gets deep into the body and causes problems. So that's why I love meditation because you can sit there and feel it completely and allow it to just dissolve and pass through and without causing any harm to myself or others. So it's a great methodology. I like what you said about going through. I'm wondering about this forgetting though that I mentioned. I wonder if it's just trauma of maybe even a human birth or why. And I want to ask you because this seems so important. I mean, you went through a traumatic car accident, but in general, I mean, I think even just being born into this world in some sense is some degree of trauma. And then it almost just goes up from there. So, and I'm so disheartened by people who claim that it's some part of me just doesn't want to accept that the certain trauma can't be healed from. So I don't know so that it's hard for me to accept. I understand that some of it is so severe and some people say we can just manage it and deal with it. But I'm not really trauma informed, so to speak, or whatever, but I'm very fascinated by this because it's a huge issue that I think ripples through the collective. And if there's extreme abuse and trauma for one, then since we're all interconnected, what kind of effect that has. At the same time, there is polarity. So we have the opposite end of someone you're talking about, like in us that are lighthouses. And I love this notion of just really kind of contemplating and seeing that we don't have to do, or even say anything, or even be any particular way to have that light here and anchored and be of benefit. And so everything else is just, it goes up from there. So yeah, I guess I want to get your on trauma and then also just how to interact. And I wouldn't want to call muggles because one of the challenges I have is looking down on people who aren't awake. I mean, in the past, it really bothered me, but now I realize, no, my place is like equanimity, People are responsible for their own actions. And even though I care, I can't make their choices for them. I can't live their life for them. But what I need to do is take responsibility for how I behave and speak and act towards them. And what can I do where I don't either step on their journey, interfere with it, but at the same time, know I'm there for support when I can and when I'm available and able to.
Right. And I feel I'm going to start with that because that's a
Hmm.
big thing. And it is a big struggle. And I think that not everybody understands that you can be disrupting someone else's journey. And now they're not learning what they need to learn. So the damn pattern's going to happen over and over again. And I can speak to that very, very closely because I early on definitely would like come in like a steamroller and be like, here's what we need to do. Here's how it can be fixed. Like, I mean, that's because of how I grew up in so much trauma. And so always being the fix it, always being that empath that just knew like, okay, like everything needs to have its place. This is what we do. And it takes a lot to understand that actually the more you step back and the more you allow space between, that allows growth. The more healing you do on yourself. Healing, by the way, can be going for walks in the morning. It does not have to be lying down with a shaman in the middle of, India. It doesn't. And that's something I want people to know too. It doesn't have to be that way. Healing is very different for each and every human being.
Even the way
When
we
you,
talk to ourselves, right? I mean,
yes,
don't
yes.
write it off as insignificant because it has a
No,
cumulative
it's
effect. Every little thing could
so,
possibly add up.
everything can be healing. Everything that you put into your body, that's a podcast in itself. But, the essence of something that you asked about, and this is what I want to hit on, which is I'm going to kind of weave everything together that you were talking about, is that every time you do something for yourself, and that is a healing essence for yourself. Honestly, every time you practice meditation, go to yoga, go to Pilates, and you truly are getting connected to your body, mind, and spirit, that is a healing moment for you. You then are the ripple effect energetically to all of the people around you, within your family, your animals, the people. Now it gets better. Not only are you a ripple effect to those people in the here and now, every time you are healing and you are releasing. You are allowing that for, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 7 generations back of ancestors who aren't even on this earth anymore.
Some even say 7 future generations too, and that's mind-boggling
That gives me
yeah,
goosebumps. And I
right?
would believe that, right? Because I look at it as in every family, there's always that one. You're the cycle breaker. It stops there. I happen to be that person. The buck has stopped here. It is not something that, well, I didn't think I asked for it, but clearly somewhere along the lines I did. And I have ridden that wave lots of different ways, and you will too if it is you, and you will decide what is best for you along the ways. But when you realize that, gosh, every time I work on myself, like I can feel my grandmother and my grandfather being like, we're so proud of you. We got you. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for releasing whatever that was. The burden's there, right? It's so in depth with all of it. You think that you're not a good entrepreneur and that money never comes to you easily. What if it was something from 3 generations ago that was a block? Hello. Like, this is just things you're called to work on. It doesn't mean if you're doing all of the things, then let's look at a broader aspect of it. And that's something that, I do believe that healing is there. I do believe that there are so many modalities. I do believe that whatever you have been through, whether it is physically, whether it is emotionally or mentally, that yes, if you want healing, if you want to move on from it, you can. I'm not saying that it's gone forever. I mean, I've been through a lot. It is there. I am aware of it. It does not run my world anymore. And that's the key. So I wholeheartedly believe no matter what it is, physically, mentally, emotionally, that there is healing to be had.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that God, Jesus, the Dalai Lama, whomever you believe in, we're not meant to be here to be in pain and be unhappy. We're meant to be happy, to live good lives.
Well, we can, and it is possible. That's right. And I
Yes.
like your kind of framing of this. Instead of me going to the absolute of it can never be totally, that it's possible to heal. And I like that direction, because then I don't have to get into these extremes or
It's
absolutes around that.
possible.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
maybe, honestly, you don't want to.
Yeah. That's
I
another
know
thing.
people who are afraid to seek out help because they believe that if they get help, they're going to end up in a loony bin because of the depths of everything they feel that they've been through. When in fact, it's quite the opposite. The moment that you go in and you are able to start this process of healing and you allow yourself to be free of these emotions, whatever this is, the stuff people have said to you, that's when you're free. You can be free of all of this, the disease, the disease, the angst, all of it. Look, we're not saying it's easy. It's not. This is an everyday thing. Are you going to be triggered? Yes. And here's why. Triggers aren't bad. Shadows aren't bad. They're there to let you know the stuff that you still have to work on, that I still have to work on. And then when that doesn't do it anymore, by the way, there's going to be something else, because you're still here and you're still living and you're still walking on this earth.
Well, that's well put. And I tell people the same thing. Usually, I'm glad to be triggered, because then it's like finding my blind spots in a way. Now, there's another thing that comes in here that I've heard another teacher say that I wonder about too is, yeah, was really into healing for a long time. Then has this kind of notion of, well, if you kind of, oh, you like healing? Well, we'll give you something to heal. You know what I mean? So like is saying that, okay, at a certain time, where does the healing, like you said, there is potentially no end to it. So I can see that's okay. Then we're just kind of in for the long haul. But what if there's a different view or perspective, or what if our view and perspective of that is actually perpetuating even more of it? And I don't know, but I wonder about that. Like if really putting a huge emphasis on healing in a healing journey, well, then what happens when I don't have anything to heal? And then maybe I'm over identifying with healing. And so then maybe I'm either attracting that or having a cognitive bias towards that. And I wonder about that. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder if there's anything to that. And I
So
don't know how to really go around it or how to
yeah, so
address that. Yeah.
I think I have a story to share about a client who, and let's see, I feel like there's something here. So this client had always associated being X, Y, and Z cancer patient forever. Came to me, was attracted to me energetically, and had heard some things that I was able to help some people and thought, okay, great. So we start working together. And there was one day, and all of my work, by the way, is generally distant. It's never in person. That's how I've been guided to do all my work. I don't need you here. You know what? You probably don't want to be here. I don't want you here. I want you to be where you're most comfortable. So we worked for halfway around the world. And one day we got off the phone and I just said, the cancer's gone. Like I felt that it was gone. And I was like, wow, that was an amazing session. That was so amazing. And I continued working with this person and they came back and they said, I think we need to do like 3 sessions this week. Like something really bad has happened. And I said, oh my God, what happened? All of my scans are clear. And I went, what? My skin, something's really wrong here. Like there is nothing, the numbers aren't there. This isn't there. That isn't there. And I'm doing like you. I'm over here like, hallelujah, this is amazing. But that scared this human being so much because that's all that they've been told that they are. That's all they know. They only know those support groups. They only know that. They only know holy crap, they want to take me off the drug. Oh my God, what do I do? And that in and of itself became a different healing journey. Now, there's 2 roads that this begins to take. This begins to take the road where we now are going to align body, mind, and spirit, and we're going to be okay because we're now in fight or flight. The ego's trying to take over and go, oh my God, we're not safe. What has happened? We can choose to go down that road and work on that and understand that, oh my gosh, that really wasn't who I was at all. Here's what I learned from it. How amazing. I have a story to share, turn my pain into passion, all of the things, right? Or there's another road. One has become so attuned with this identity that you're going to call the identity back. And I won't share what happened with this person. However, it didn't exactly go the way I wanted it to go. I'll leave it with that.
But
But
the
it was
wisdom
their
that came from
journey.
that, exactly, and the
But it was
wisdom
their
that came
journey.
from that, of like, okay, there's these kind of 2 different roads that can happen, and that's helpful for people going through a healing journey, for healers to know this fork in the road, and to see that ahead of time and be
Yeah.
prepared for that. Yeah.
And that was a hard one. That was a really hard one for me on an intuitive healer level, knowing like, oh my gosh, like there's so much. Like, and I don't look at it as this is something that I've done. I'm here as your lighthouse, as your toolbox. I'm giving you everything. And this is you. This is you allowing this to transpire within your body, within your mind, within your spirit. And so it is very hard. And I think that's an extreme scenario, but I want people to know that if you take that back to your house, to your home, to your partner, to your mother, father, whomever, sometimes you just have to let it be because
Is
they
it,
are who they are.
it shows really the importance of identity too, that what we're identifying with is very important and can be very powerful, good and bad. When can we put it down? When can we pick it up? How much are we clinging to what we're identifying with? And how much is that helpful or not?
Mhm.
And how do what if we don't know, the fear of the unknown? Who am I without this? It frightens people to death, like an ego death or, not knowing what to do. And I think this is why helping, being open, but also having friends is so helpful too. And associating with the why is also very incredible too. And it shows, I think, our expectations as well. Here we were expecting, oh, they'd be so happy. It's great. Wow, what a
Right?
win, celebrate. But then all of a sudden, wait a second, it's not what I expected to happen.
Right.
Wow. How about
Right.
that? What do I do with that? Yeah.
This reminds me, if I can share another one, it
Sure,
actually kind
please.
of just dropped in and I thought, I don't know that I want to share that. And they were like, no, share. It makes me cry. They're like, no, share this one. So there's someone who's very, very close to me and we have spent many lives together, including this life, and definitely shared a big piece of my heart. And This person ended up getting very ill, and we were always very close and didn't share it with me. And it was very, very difficult to find out from a third party that this person was so ill and so sick, in knowing who I am and knowing what I could do to help. And so when we were able to connect, we connected. And this person had gone through hell and back again with their cancer story and chose to reach out when they were what they thought on the other side. And then we found out there was something else. And I said, it's okay. You know what? Like, there's all this, and God bless this person. He was so funny. He would say, he's like, you're such my little gypsy. I believe in all that crazy stuff you believe in. I totally believe in all of it. I'm like, great. It doesn't have to come from me. Like, I'm giving you everything you could ever imagine to work with. It doesn't have to come from me. And this person went very quiet. And I was very, very hurt. We had just suddenly, the world had come back around. We were planning our lives together. And this person went very quiet. And I was so angry and I was so hurt. And I later found out that it was much worse than this person had anticipated. And they didn't want me to be a part of it. And I share this part because this is really, really, equally is tearing at your heart as a human for someone in your life versus someone just being a client. I want people to understand both sides of it. And this was so devastating to me because here I am knowing what I can do, and I had to be okay with this person choosing this path. And I had to be okay with letting go because that's what they were choosing. Because at this point, life had gotten too hard. And that was one of the harder things. I've been through quite a few hard things with people close to me. That was so hard for me to go through and then to be shut out at the end. Again, being told, I don't want you to go through this with me, was very challenging. And it's so funny because he's here in spirit and he's like, oh my God, will you please stop blubbering and get to the good stuff? And the good stuff is that when I received the call that he had passed, I just fell to my knees. It was, to me, I had lost that person that you always thought was going to be your person in this world. And this is something that I want people to know. Some people are told you can't connect with people for months or a certain time after they pass, and that's not true. Oh my God, there's snot coming out of my nose. He literally showed up that night for me and said to me, I had to let my body go. If I didn't let it go, I wouldn't be able to come back for you. And it was so devastating, but yet calming at the same time. And I knew what he meant. I mean, at first I was like in the 3D world, like, oh my God, you're coming back. Like, oh my God, are you going to show up tomorrow? And it wasn't that. It's very different. It is actually much better than that now. But I want people to understand that when we have these gifts and when you are gifted, yes, I believe that gifts are here and we should be sharing them, and we've been given them for a reason. So find a way that feels comfortable to you to give them. But I want you to know the other side too, that it is hard. And again, there were lessons and blessings that came out of all of that. And it isn't easy when you're so gifted. And I think people think that it is, and it's not easy. You still have to play in the 3D world, and you still are very much affected by things that go on in people's worlds. And so again, it comes back to, is there ability for any, I truly believe, human being to go through healing to the point of which they choose to? Yes. Is there also a point where that person may say no more? Absolutely. And that is their journey. And the other piece, and this is one that I struggle with, and I don't know if you believe in this, Josh. I really struggle with this one, that not only do we all have that contract and all the stuff that we signed up for, but that we also have already picked how, when, where we exit our life suit. We exit this physical body. And I struggle with that one a lot. That one's hard.
Some yogis actually know and can determine and choose when they go. Some people are at that level. So, there's that at least for sure. Cause I've heard
Hmm.
countless stories, not countless, but plenty of stories where there's advanced yogis that can choose the time and place of how they go,
Yeah.
they'll tell their students, no, I'm going this, then, get ready. Cause I'm going now.
Yeah. Which I mean, don't we all want to be in that much at peace with the world and ourselves at that point? Like I want to be at that peace. I'm not afraid. I remember when I went in for my heart surgery, which is something I don't talk about ever. I don't remember going in and being scared. I didn't want it. I did everything I could to avoid it, but I didn't want it. I remember cracking jokes with the surgeon in there, and he was like, "I can't even believe you just said that." And I'm like, "I can't either. It's almost like another body. Like, who says that kind of like craziness before you go into this kind of a surgery?" But there's all these things that are in our worlds and why we experience them. And I do believe that everything that we experience is something that we can share with someone else later on in our lives that we don't know about now that is going to serve a purpose. Again, turning your pain into a purpose for someone else, maybe for yourself. And it's hard to look at things that way and it's hard to connect that way. But I think the more that we can do that and say, okay, everything does happen for a reason.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't happen randomly in my experience.
Right.
There's no such thing as randomness, that's for sure. And that's I'm more convinced on that too. The purpose we can give at least afterwards, right? Or at least how we're going to view it and how we're going to
Right.
respond to it, how we'll hold it. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that moment. I
Yeah.
mean, that's going to help a lot of people connect to that. And it reminds me of also not it just seeing a loved one standing by and not certain ones that know I cannot do anything for them. I want to do everything I can for them, but there's nothing I can do. And how kind of powerless that feels, almost helpless in a way too. But just know that's if, at least I won't go into details, but just know that that's a fact of life too. There are instances where we care and love so deeply, and there's absolutely nothing I can do, and it's hard for me to hold that and be with that and accept that. But that's just the way it is sometimes. And that devastation you're talking about, when I had this teaching, and I didn't see it at first, but then contemplating that devastation can reveal deep truths within us. And wow, like I would never want to go through some of the devastation. And at the same time, the silver lining, if there is anyone, is that it can bring out deep truths. Now, I don't recommend that. We can get to deep truths other ways,
Oh,
but that's
absolutely.
one
Yeah.
thing it can do. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, for sure. For sure. That's a story. My gosh, I don't even know like how or why he showed up and asked me to share that. I have not.
It's time. It's obviously time.
I have
And
not.
you're
And I would
ready, and everybody's ready to hear it now,
yeah, and
too.
I
And
would say
he's
that
ready.
the beauty is that he's with me more now than he's flipping ever been. And it's it goes to that saying of you're never alone. Like I love my own company. I love my two fur babies who are my children and they are my babies. I never feel alone. I don't need people. And it's such a powerful place when you meet somebody who can truly say that. And I know that you're one of those people too, Josh. When you have and you have your partner, so that's wonderful. When you have that container, no, that means that whatever gets allowed in that container has to be freaking fantastic to be another, microbe in that container.
Very well put. Yeah. And yes, I'm reminded of that time and time again, too. So, yes, another good reminder. And I like how you put that. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good. So, I appreciate that. And Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on here and share and having your heart be tender and vulnerable and open. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And wow, this is as far as deeper and deeper connections, this is what's needed. But to have that courage to do that, it's just really a rare treat for me, and I'm sure the listeners as well. So yeah, that's it. And it's a role model, like, because what we've gone through, we're able to help people. I don't like this word hero, but like if we've gone through it, we can then shine for everyone else and help them along too. We don't have to do it alone all the time either. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, so tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can work with you, kind of what offerings you have in general. Maybe anything you want to announce that you maybe have in the works? Anything else you want to draw people's attention to? And then how about leaving with a final message to them?
Absolutely. So, the best way to get in touch with me is at jenniferpilates.com. That is everything, Jennifer. That is the podcast. That is the intuitive readings, animal communication. I hold 2 Reiki distant healing sessions on the new moon and the full moon every month. And so, those are wonderful opportunities to come in and taste test what it feels like. And if that's something that maybe you want to do on a one on one, then you can do that as well. We also have the Empowered Within community, which is all online, on demand, Reiki energy meditations, Pilates fusion, all of the works that I've ever done. It's in one place. And that is ever growing. And I don't know, rumor has it there might actually be live classes coming. So we're going to have to see about that as we get into the new year. Everything that I have is currently going to be expanding. So that I'm very excited about with all of the expansion of all that. Definitely want to head over there and get on the newsletter so that you can be the first to know, because that's where everything goes first, is on the newsletter, and everywhere second is then on the podcast. Those are my big modalities that I like to work with. So that's jenniferpilates.com. And a final message, I would say, one, thank you so much for sharing your energies in your heart. Josh, thank you. And thank you to the community for allowing us to come into your energy field and in your heart today. Thank you for letting me blubber. Uh, it's been a long time. But apparently, with today's new moon energies and the solstice that we have coming in, here you have it. So, this is who I am. And I don't hold back who I am anymore. I did for many years. I lived as a facade, and I don't do that anymore. And I want to let you know and to give you permission today that it is solely okay to be 100% authentically, perfectly imperfect you.
So super important. I really appreciate that. And once people make that turn to authenticity and honesty, they'll feel and see the benefits of it and how much more advantageous and natural and just nourishing it feels, and helpful too. So I can't echo that enough. So thanks again, and may all beings everywhere realize awakening and be free. Bye, everybody.